Captain Mira Solace stood alone on the jagged cliffs of Vesper 9, staring across the endless violet desert that had been her home for 15 long years. The wind carried fine crystal dust that shimmered like tiny stars, floating around her boots as she adjusted the strap of her oxygen pack. It was a sight she once found beautiful. Now, after so many seasons of silence, the desert only reminded her how far she was from human space, far from voices, far from her old life, far from anyone who could call her a friend. 15 years without a single human, without a single familiar face, without a single real conversation. Some days she felt almost buried under the quiet. But Mira was not the kind of person who surrendered to loneliness. She was a survivor, a builder, a thinker, one of the best engineers the Terran fleet ever trained. And she had refused, every single day, to let Vesper 9 be her grave. She lifted her gaze to the sky, where the pale blue sun hung low. The faint trail of her automated weather drone flickered across the horizon. It was one of the many machines she had built from wreckage and scraps to keep herself alive. Some were clunky. Some were barely functional. But they worked, and they taught her one lesson again and again. Humans endure. Mira turned away from the cliff and walked back toward her shelter, a reinforced structure made from the remains of her crashed research ship, the Horizon Crest. Over the years, she had reshaped the wreck into something almost comfortable. Solar panels lined the exterior, a water condenser hummed beside the entrance, and a tall antenna stretched from the roof like a lonely flagpole. Inside, the shelter was dim but warm. Screens glowed with soft green lights, showing life support levels, power reserves, and the limited atmosphere data she collected. She sat down in her chair, an uncomfortable seat welded from 3 broken ones, and powered up the long-range radio. Every day she checked it. Every day it returned the same silent static. Mira placed her hand over the console, closing her eyes. "Please," she whispered. "Just once. Let there be someone out there." Static. More static. Then, a faint pop. And the signal faded again. She exhaled slowly. The result hurt, but she did not let herself break. She never allowed that. Tears would not fix her antenna. Tears would not bring a ship. Tears would not help her get off this barren planet that stole 15 years from her life. Instead, she stood and moved to the back of the room, where a hologram flickered to life as she approached. It showed a wireframe model of a ship, sleek, sharp, designed for speed and survival. Her dream, her obsession, her escape. The Solace engine. The ship she had been building piece by piece for more than a decade. It wasn't complete. Not yet. But every day she got closer. Mira placed her palm against the hologram and whispered, "I am not done. Not yet." Whether she was speaking to herself or the ship, she didn't know. Later that afternoon, Mira ventured outside again, carrying her pack of tools. She walked toward the canyon, where she stored her scavenged materials. The canyon walls were tall and curved, shaped by centuries of wind. At the bottom lay hundreds of parts she had collected from the wreck: metal plates, wires, fragments of hull, even shattered glass she melted down for other uses. This place had become her workshop. She knelt beside the half-built propulsion coil, tightening a bolt with confident precision. Her hands were steady. Her movements were practiced. She had installed similar systems countless times during her years in the fleet, but building one alone from damaged components was a challenge she never expected. As she worked, her mind drifted back to the day of the accident, the moment everything changed. The wormhole experiment had been bold, risky, and far ahead of its time. Mira had been chosen to oversee the test flight because of her brilliance and her calm control under pressure. The mission started well, until the wormhole collapsed, tearing the ship apart and dragging it into an unknown sector of space. When she woke up, she was on Vesper 9. No crew, no ship systems, no contact, nothing. But she had survived. Humans always find a way. She tightened the final bolt and stepped back from the propulsion coil. Sweat dripped down her temple, and she wiped it with the back of her hand. The coil hummed faintly, a gentle vibration that filled her with hope. "One more step," she murmured. "One more piece finished." Her voice echoed in the canyon. The sound startled her for a moment. She wasn't used to hearing a voice, especially her own, bounce back at her. The silence of the planet was something she had adapted to, but echoes always felt strange, like someone else was replying. She loaded her tools into her pack again and climbed out of the canyon. The sky had darkened slightly, turning from violet to deep indigo. Small crystal flakes drifted in the air, catching the fading light like tiny lanterns. The nights on Vesper 9 were harsh, and she needed to get inside before the temperature dropped too far. But as she reached the top of the hill near her shelter, she froze. The long-range antenna was blinking. A single, sharp red light. The light it only showed when picking up a signal. Her heart pounded in her chest. She dropped her tool pack and ran toward the shelter as fast as her legs allowed. She tripped once, caught herself, and kept going. She burst through the door, rushed to the console, and slammed her hand onto the main switch. The radio crackled, distorted, weak, but real. Then a voice broken, faint, barely more than a whisper in the static. Unknown. Receiver. If anyone, this is the Terran fleet. Requesting confirmation. Mira's breath hitched. Her fingers trembled above the controls. Human voices. After 15 years, human voices. She leaned close to the mic. "This is Captain Mira Solace of the Horizon Crest. I am alive. I repeat, I am alive and requesting rescue." The answer was faint. Signal. Unstable. Adjusting. Mira opened her mouth to reply, but stopped. The signal cut out, just as quickly as it came. "No, no, no, not now, come on." She frantically adjusted the dials, switched frequencies, boosted power, anything that came to mind. Static. Only static. Still, Mira did not collapse. She did not scream. She did not allow panic to take over. Her heart raced, but her mind remained sharp. She had heard them. They had heard her. A connection existed, even if weak. That alone changed everything. Mira leaned back in her chair, eyes shining with determination she had not felt in years. She whispered, "I'm going home." That night she barely slept. She inspected the antenna 3 times, recalibrated every system, and prepared emergency supplies in case the fleet sent a ship. Part of her feared she would never hear from them again. Another part, stronger, louder, believed this was the beginning of her return. As the blue sun rose the next morning, Mira stepped outside again. The desert looked the same. The sky looked the same. But she felt different. For the first time in 15 years, she wasn't just surviving. She had a purpose again. A direction. A chance. She looked toward the sky, her hands clenched into determined fists. 15 years without contact, she said softly. But I'm still here, and I'm not done yet. And with that, she returned to the canyon, ready to finish the Solace engine, ready to seize the future that had been stolen from her. Because humanity might fall, might break, might suffer, but it always rises again. And so would she. Captain Mira Solace did not sleep properly for the next 2 days. Ever since that weak, broken radio call reached her antenna, her mind kept replaying it over and over. A voice. A real human voice. After 15 years of hearing only her own breathing, her own footsteps, her own heartbeat, the sound of another person felt almost unreal, like a dream she might lose if she blinked too hard. But Mira was not the kind to sit still and hope for luck. She spent both days fixing every system she could. She rewired the communication grid. She raised the antenna by another 3 meters. She boosted power from her solar cells. She even repaired one of her old drones and sent it into the upper atmosphere to act as a signal relay. On the third day, just when she was tightening the bolts on the drone stabilizer, her radio crackled again. A steady tone. Not static. Not random noise. A real signal. She raced inside the shelter, slipping slightly on the smooth metal floor, and slammed down into her chair. Her hand hovered over the main switch for a second, not out of fear, but from disbelief. Then she flipped it. The speaker hissed. Then a clear message broke through. Captain Mira Solace, this is Terran Fleet Vessel Regulus Dawn. Your transmission has been received. We are locking onto your position. Stand by. For a moment, Mira couldn't breathe. She felt the world tilt beneath her, as if the gravity changed. Her hands shook. Her throat tightened. It was happening. After 15 years, it was really happening. She leaned over the microphone. Regulus Dawn. This is Captain Solace. I read you. I am ready. Copy that, Captain. Rescue operation begins now. She stepped back from the console and let out a long, shaky breath. Her legs felt weak. She placed one hand on the wall to steady herself. She whispered to no one, I'm going home. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. Mira grabbed her essential tools, her journals, her hologram discs, and everything she had built that might matter later. Her shelter, her home for so long, suddenly felt small, temporary, fragile, like something she had borrowed instead of owned. She stood in the doorway for a moment, looking around. The dented walls, the flickering screens, the shelves filled with her inventions, the memories she carved into every corner with her hard work. Even though she wanted to leave, a part of her felt strange walking away. This place saved me, she murmured. Then she stepped outside and closed the door behind her for the last time. The sky above Vesper 9 changed slowly as the Regulus Dawn entered the atmosphere. At first, Mira saw only a distant spark, just a tiny point of light. But as the minutes passed, the spark grew into a glimmering star, then a burning trail, then the unmistakable outline of a Terran fleet rescue craft. Her heart hammered in her chest. The ship descended through the violet clouds, engines rumbling like distant thunder. Dust lifted off the ground around Mira as she shielded her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt the vibration of human-made engines against the soil, a sound she feared she might never hear again. The landing gear touched the ground with a soft thud. The engines lowered to a calm hum. The side ramp hissed and opened. Mira swallowed hard. Two figures emerged, both in Terran fleet uniforms, both wearing helmets sealed against the planet's atmosphere. The first one approached her slowly and lifted his visor. He looked stunned. Captain Solace, it really is you. Mira stared at him. His face was unfamiliar. But the uniform, the badge, the bright blue Terran symbol, they were all so familiar it almost hurt to see them again. She nodded. It's me. The officer's eyes softened. We thought you were gone. Everyone did. I survived, she said simply. That's what humans do. He gave a small smile. Yes, Captain. That's what we do. They guided her up the ramp, and the interior of the ship washed over her in a wave of emotion she could barely contain. Clean metal walls, bright lights, the faint hum of stable life support systems, the smell of recycled air that felt like home. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. It was the first time in 15 years she wasn't surrounded by silence. The ship took off, carrying her away from Vesper 9, away from isolation, and toward the civilization she once served. As the planet grew smaller beneath them, Mira felt a weight lift from her shoulders, a weight she had carried for far too long. But as the Regulus Dawn broke into space, one thought returned to her mind. What had changed in the galaxy during her absence? She would soon find out. The journey to the nearest Terran base took several hours. Mira spent most of the time answering questions from the crew, whose eyes widened with every new detail. They listened with stunned respect when she described the crash, the early years of survival, the machines she built, the structures she reinforced, and the constant fear that rescue might never come. One young engineer whispered, "You did all that? By yourself?" Mira responded quietly, "If I didn't, I would have died." Another crew member murmured, "You're a legend already." She shook her head. "No, I'm a survivor, that's all." But deep inside, she knew those 15 years had changed her. She wasn't the same captain who left Earth. She wasn't the same engineer who boarded the Horizon Crest. She wasn't the same woman who once believed the galaxy was stable and predictable. Now she understood how fragile everything was, how quickly life could fracture, how powerful human resilience could be. And that strength would matter soon far more than she yet realized. When the Regulus Dawn finally docked at the Terran Fleet outpost Helios Gate, Mira felt her breath catch again. The station was massive, larger than she remembered, Terran stations ever being. But it was damaged. Metal plates were torn, lights flickered. Several sections were under repair. This wasn't the strong, confident human civilization she remembered. As she stepped off the ship, a group of officers greeted her. They saluted immediately. "Captain Mira Solace," the commander said, awe in his voice. "Welcome back." Mira returned the salute. "You've been gone a long time," the commander said carefully. "And a lot has happened." And she glanced around at the patched walls, the tired crew, the grim faces. "I can see that." The commander nodded. "The galaxy is different now. Humanity has been fighting a losing war for the last decade. 5 Reap 207. 5 Reap, 5 Reap. I made John Paulus." The commander nodded. Mira tensed. "With who?" "The Kier Dominion." The name was unfamiliar. "I've never heard of them." "You wouldn't have. They appeared 8 years after your disappearance. An alien collective. Advanced. Intelligent. Aggressive. They struck our colonies fast, and we never recovered our ground." Mira felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. "How many colonies have fallen?" she asked. "Dozens." She closed her eyes. "And Earth?" "Still standing, but strained." Mira took a slow breath. "Then I returned in the middle of a war." The commander nodded. "A war we are losing." Silence followed. Heavy. Cold. Mira straightened her shoulders. "Then I need to help," she said firmly. The commander gave her a surprised look. "You just returned from 15 years of isolation. You need rest. Medical checks. Adjustment time." Mira shook her head. "No. I don't need rest. I need purpose. And I spent 15 years building things humanity has never seen. If we're losing this war, I can help change that." The commander studied her for a long moment. Then he slowly nodded. "You may be exactly what we need." Later, as Mira was escorted to a temporary quarters, she looked out the station window. Far away, stars shimmered like scattered diamonds. The galaxy she loved was injured. Her people were in danger. Her home needed help. And Mira Solace had not survived 15 years on a dead planet just to watch humanity fall. She whispered to the stars, "I lost 15 years. I won't lose any more." The fire inside her burned stronger than ever. This was not the end of her story. This was only the beginning of humanity's fight back. Captain Mira Solace stood inside the engineering hall of Helios Gate, staring at the long row of damaged machines, broken drones, burnt-out shield modules, cracked energy cells, wires hanging like torn vines. It was clear this place had seen far too many battles and not enough victories. Engineers moved around the hall with tired faces and slow steps. They weren't lazy. They were exhausted. Many of them had worked double or triple shifts, because there simply weren't enough people left to handle the repairs. Mira walked slowly between the work tables. Everything she saw, told the same story. Humanity was fighting with old tools. They were patching up broken systems faster than they could innovate. They were surviving, not winning. The chief engineer, a tall man named Aaron Velas, approached her. He looked like he hadn't slept properly in weeks. "We're doing what we can," he said, rubbing his forehead. "But the Cheer Dominion tech is too advanced. Their weapons burn through our shields like paper. Their ships outrun ours. Their communication tech scrambles ours. We keep losing ground." Mira nodded slowly. "Show me the reports." Aaron handed her a tablet. She scanned through the pages: weapon failures, engine breakdowns, shield overloads, power drops, attack patterns. Her mind immediately began analyzing everything, breaking problems into smaller ones, searching for gaps she could fill. At the end of the hall stood the biggest failure of all, a half-built ship prototype surrounded by caution lights. "That was supposed to be our next-generation combat ship," Aaron said with frustration. "But we never finished it. We don't have the materials, and the design keeps causing energy instability." Mira stepped closer to the prototype. The frame was impressive, sleek, curved, built for both speed and defense. But it was missing something obvious to her. "It's unbalanced," Mira said. Aaron blinked. "Unbalanced? How?" She tapped the frame with her knuckles. "The energy channels are misaligned. You're forcing too much power through narrow connectors. That's why you get instability. You need a split-channel distribution system." Aaron raised his eyebrows. "Split channel? We don't use that in the fleet." "I do," Mira said simply. "I built one on Vesper 9. It kept me alive." Engineers nearby stopped working and slowly turned to stare at her. "You built advanced energy tech on a desert planet?" someone asked quietly. Mira shrugged. "I had time." Someone whispered, 15 years. Mira ran her fingers along the prototype. Her mind was already designing improvements. Stronger hull plating made from hybrid alloys she invented. New shield structures that regenerated faster. Engine systems that didn't collapse under stress. She turned to Aaron. "Give me access to your schematics," she said. Aaron hesitated. "We can't risk losing more." "You won't," Mira said firmly. "I'm not here to watch humanity fall. I'm here to help rebuild it." Aaron held her gaze for a moment, then slowly nodded. "All right, Captain. Let's see what you can do." The next days passed in a blur of work. Mira barely slept. She barely ate. She moved from table to table, system to system, with the intense focus of someone who had waited 15 years to make up for everything she lost. Every engineer in the hall soon realized something important. Mira Solace didn't work like them. She worked faster, smarter, and with a kind of fierce determination they hadn't seen in years. She redesigned energy cores. She reconstructed shield emitters. She taught the engineers how to build stabilizers based on her own survival inventions. And slowly, the hall transformed from a place of exhaustion into a place of excitement. People whispered about her. They followed her. They trusted her. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a spark the fleet desperately needed. One morning, Mira stood before the holographic project screen, projecting the new ship design she had created overnight. "This," she said to the small crowd of engineers and officers, "is the Solace engine." The hologram rotated in the air, a sleek starship with curved armor, a reinforced core, and a unique, glowing channel spiraling along the hull. Aaron stared with wide eyes. "This is revolutionary." "It's everything I learned on Vesper 9, Mira explained. "Energy management, heat dispersion, emergency backups, shield layering, survival designs, weapons built from repurposed systems. Each part exists because I needed it to stay alive." The commander of the outpost spoke next, his voice low with awe. "Yes," Mira said. "Because it's efficient. Because it uses materials you already have. Because it's made for real war, not ideal circumstances." "But can it fight?" another officer asked. Mira looked him directly in the eyes. It can survive anything the Cheer Dominion throws at it, she said. And if it can survive, it can win. Silence filled the hall. Heavy, powerful silence. Then Aaron stepped forward. Captain, if this works, this could change everything. Mira nodded. It will. Work on the Solace engine began immediately. The engineering hall buzzed with new energy. Everyone wanted to help. Everyone wanted to be part of the project. Everyone wanted hope again. Mira guided each step, moving between teams, adjusting angles, recalibrating cores, welding plates with skilled precision. She worked with the strength of someone driven by years of silence and waiting. By the 5th day, the basic frame was complete. By the 10th day, the engines were installed. By the 15th day, the shields were fully functional. The engineers gathered around the ship, staring up at it with a mixture of disbelief and pride. Aaron shook his head. I've never seen anything built this fast. Humans are fast when they believe in something, Mira said softly. But the real test came when they activated the core. The entire station held its breath as Mira stepped forward and placed her hand on the main control panel. Powering up, she said calmly. The engineers watched the ship anxiously. Lights flickered. The energy core hummed. The hull glowed with a soft blue spiral. Then, whoo, the ship came alive. The lights stabilized. The power lines pulsed evenly. The energy readings climbed steadily higher than any ship on the station had ever reached. Aaron stared at the display. This output is impossible. No Terran ship has ever done this. Now one has, Mira said quietly. The commander turned to her. Captain Solace, with this ship, we might finally have a chance. Mira nodded. But her face grew serious. One ship isn't enough, she said. We need a fleet. We need people. We need courage. She turned to the engineers, to the officers, to everyone who stood there watching. Humanity isn't losing because we're weak, she said. We're losing because we've forgotten what we're capable of. Her voice echoed in the hall. I survived 15 years alone because I refused to give up. If one person can do that, imagine what all of us can do together. The room filled with a new kind of energy, not fear, not exhaustion, but determination. People looked at each other with renewed hope. That night, Mira remained in the hangar long after everyone else left. She stood beside the Solace engine, staring at her reflection in the polished hull. This ship was more than a machine. It was her struggle, her survival, her lost years, her strength, and soon it would carry her into battle. She placed her palm against the metal. I didn't survive those years for nothing, she whispered. It's time to take back what we lost. As she walked away, the lights of the hangar dimmed. The Solace engine glowed softly in the darkness. Waiting. Ready. A symbol of what humans could do when pushed to the edge. Tomorrow, the fight would begin. The Solace engine floated in the center of Helios Gate's launch hangar, glowing with steady blue light. Engineers stood in rows nearby, watching with quiet awe as the final checks were completed. Officers moved with urgency, but also with excitement. For the first time in many years, the station felt alive. Captain Mira Solace walked toward her ship with calm, steady steps. She wore a clean Terran fleet uniform, freshly prepared for her first mission in 15 years. The emblem on her chest shone bright, the symbol of humanity, a circle surrounded by 3 stars. As she stepped onto the boarding ramp, Aaron Velis hurried after her. Captain, he said breathlessly. All systems are ready. Weapons calibrated, shields stable, engines at full power. We've never seen numbers like these. Mira smiled softly. Good. Because today we'll test everything we built. Aaron nodded, but his eyes showed worry. You don't have to be the one who pilots it. We can assign. No, Mira said gently but firmly. I built this ship. I understand it better than anyone. And I'm not sending someone else into danger for something I created. Aaron lowered his head with respect. Then, good luck, Captain. Mira stepped inside the ship. The Solace engine's cockpit felt like the perfect mix of old and new. Buttons she recognized from her days in the fleet sat beside panels she had personally redesigned. The seat adjusted automatically as she sat down. The ship seemed to welcome her like an old friend. Solace engine, preparing for launch, Mira said, her voice clear and steady. The hangar filled with activity. Officers confirmed final connections. Energy lines glowed brighter. The outer shields shimmered. A voice from the station's command center came through the speakers. Captain Solace. Your mission is to scout the Dominion front line near the Vega Rift. Gather data. Test your ship. Do not engage. Unless necessary. Mira smirked slightly. Understood, she said. But she knew the truth engagement was almost guaranteed. The Kira Dominion never let Terran ships pass unharmed. She rested her hands on the controls. Solace engine launch. With a smooth rise, the ship lifted off the platform and drifted toward the hangar doors. When the bay opened, the darkness of space spread before her like an endless ocean. The Solace engine shot forward, leaving Helios Gate behind in a burst of shimmering blue light. The journey to the Vega Rift was fast, far faster than any Terran ship Mira had ever flown. The engines responded like they could read her thoughts. The shields held steady, even during high-speed jumps. The power core remained perfectly balanced. Every system worked exactly as she hoped. This ship is ready, she whispered. But the space around the Vega Rift was not peaceful. The moment she approached the region, the scanners detected movement. 5 Dominion ships hovered in formation near a broken asteroid. Their sleek metallic shapes glimmered with cold, harsh light. They looked like silent predators waiting to strike. Mira's heartbeat quickened. She had seen pictures and reports of Dominion ships, but seeing them in front of her was different. She felt a calm determination settle inside her. All right, she said to herself. Let's test this. The Solace engine's scanners clicked into place. Mira collected energy readings, structural data, and flight patterns from the Dominion fleet. The Dominion ships hadn't detected her yet. The Solace engine's quiet engines and adaptive shields kept her hidden. But the moment she started her exit maneuver, the Dominion ships suddenly shifted direction. They detected me, she said quietly. A warning tone echoed in the cockpit. 3 Dominion ships broke formation and moved toward her. Mira didn't panic. She had survived on a deadly planet for 15 years. She had built this ship with her own hands. Fear had no space inside her. Let's see if you can keep up, she said. She pushed the controls forward. The Solace engine leapt into motion with incredible speed. The stars around her became long streaks of light. Dominion ships followed, but they were slower, far slower. Mira smiled. Good. They can't match the engines. But one Dominion ship fired a pulse of energy. It wasn't a damaging blast, it was a signal disruptor, meant to scramble Terran technology. The pulse hit the Solace engine. The engines flickered. The shields stuttered. Mira clenched her jaw. Not this time. She activated the split-channel system she invented years ago. Power divided smoothly through the ship, stabilizing the systems instantly. The engines roared back to full strength. The shields glowed brighter than before. The Dominion ships hesitated, as if they didn't understand what happened. You didn't expect humans to adapt, she muttered. But we always do. She pressed another control. A spiral of energy released from the wings, her own invention, a defensive spiral shield. The Dominion ship's next disruptor pulse hit the spiral and scattered harmlessly. Now they backed off slightly. The Solace engine was confusing them. Mira took the chance to activate the hyperthrust. The Solace engine shot forward faster than any Terran ship ever had. Within seconds, she left the Dominion ships far behind. She escaped the Vega Rift safely. Mission complete. When she returned to Helios Gate, the entire command deck waited for her report. Officers crowded around the screens as the Solace engine docked. The hangar doors opened, and Mira stepped out of her ship. The commander approached her immediately. "What happened? Did the Dominion engage you?" "They tried," Mira said calmly. But the Solace engine held strong. Their disruptors failed against the spiral shield. The engines outran them easily. Aaron stared at her. "You escaped 3 Dominion ships alone?" Mira nodded. "And I brought data. A lot of it." Officers stared at her with renewed hope. She handed the data drive to the commander. "This has everything we need to understand their tech, their patterns, their weaknesses." The commander looked at her with deep respect. "Captain Solace, you may have just given humanity a future." Mira shook her head. "Not yet. This is only the beginning. We have a chance, nothing more. But if we build more ships like the Solace engine, if we train pilots to use them, if we stand together," her voice grew stronger, "we can take back our galaxy." The room filled with quiet determination. Not fear. Not despair. Something new. Something bright. Hope. Over the next months, Mira led teams across Terran space. She trained engineers in her methods. She helped design improved engines, stronger shields, smarter communication systems. Her 15 years of inventions became humanity's new foundation. And the more she worked, the more people followed her. Soon, humanity had a fleet, not large, not perfect, but powerful. Each ship carried a part of Mira's survival wisdom. Each ship stood as proof that humans could rise, even from the darkest places. The day came when the Terran fleet gathered near the edge of Dominion territory. Dozens of new Solace-class ships floated in formation, engines glowing with blue light. The fleet commander stood on the bridge of the flagship and looked at Mira. "Captain Solace," he said, "are you ready to lead us?" Mira stepped forward. She looked at the fleet. Her fleet, in a way. Ships built from her designs, carrying the spirit she refused to lose on Vesper 9. "I was ready the day you rescued me," she said. "Today, humanity takes back its future." The order was given. The fleet activated engines. The stars stretched into lines. The Solace engine led the way. Humanity surged forward. Not with fear. Not with weakness. But with courage, innovation, and unbreakable strength. For the first time in 15 years, Mira felt whole. She had survived alone. She had returned. She had built hope. She had inspired a fleet. And now, she would help win back the galaxy. Because no matter how dark the universe became, one truth always remained. Humans never stop fighting for tomorrow.